Looking for some mixed martial arts in Sydney on November 8th? Well, got the show for you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your main event.
Live from HBF Stadium Festival Hall. Melbourne Pavilion. Not even backstage, we're literally outside.
Was that the best fight card in Australian MMA history?
Call me crazy, but make sure you call me when I'm right.
Be good if the Aussie MMA Instagram page would give us a bit of glow up because we're killing it.
Welcome to the Australian MMA podcast. My name is Mitch Tinley, and joining me is Craig, Jehn, and the legendary Brian Ebersole. If you don't know who Brian Ebersole is, he's an American adopted Australian, which has helped pave the way for Australian mixed martial arts. He's an absolute legend, and he's joined forces with Craig, Jehn out of Sydney, who runs Showdown. They've got an event November 8th, and it's a bit of a pro-am event. You know, they've done striking, K1, Muay Thai, doing a lot more mixed martial arts these days, and really looking to push the MMA scene, especially in Sydney and for Showdown. Like I said, they've got an event November 8th, and they join me to chat all about it, where the sort of promotion came from, where it's going, and why you should care. So let's hear from our sponsors at Vex. And on the other side, Brian Ebersole, Craig, Jehn from Showdown.
PRP Global and Vex have joined forces, so keep an eye out. Launching mid-November, they've got a new Vex website and new MMA fightwear range releasing shortly. Vex, designed for combat and worn by the best in Australia.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining me on the show, Craig and the legendary Brian Ebersole, talking mixed martial arts and Showdown. Now, you're legendary to Australians. I don't know if you are to Americans, Brian, but
there's a lot of Americans, not too many Australians.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to be a legend in America, but you're a legend in Australia, and you happen to be American, so that's fine as well.
I'll take it.
Now, Craig, first I'll start with you. Why would you bring this legendary man into your promotion?
Because he's bigger than me and he basically wrestles harder, so I had no choice, did I, Brian?
Not after that 4 beers. You're pretty legless. I had you. Right.
Did you say 4 or 14?
How did it start?
Look, I've been promoting Showdown probably for 10 or 11 years now. So back in the day, it started as a kickboxing/boxing MMA show. We did all styles. Lucy Tui, she's gone now, unfortunately, but she ended up being the sanctioning body I chose back in the day, and we developed a relationship, and the show pretty much organically grew into what it is today, you know.
At what point did you go, we need to bring someone in like Brian?
You know, Brian and I, we met, I think, through Ed Bavilock, Brian's coach, under IMAF. So we actually met in Abu Dhabi or Bahrain or one of those countries, taking the Australian teams across. So Brian was basically bringing athletes across and cornering, and so was I. So we sort of sat there and we ended up spending quite a bit of time studying our opposing fighters, sitting in front of a laptop, you know, developed a friendship. Really, to be honest with you, Brian's just a great guy. And we work together as a team great. It's organically grown from there.
Debatable. I think so. But, you know, if you ask 1 in 2, Brian, I reckon would love you.
No, that's how I got him on the interview. I said I'd call him a great guy.
Pretty good for baseball, batting 500. I can match Otani's numbers.
You mean cricket? Now, Brian, when it comes to Sydney martial arts, can you talk about why it is so difficult for promotions to not just get up and running, but to continue to run in Sydney?
When I was first fighting here in Australia, there was a huge show in Sydney called CFC, ran by Luke Pizzuti and partners, and it was like the pinnacle, but they had a massive arena. They kind of, it was like lightning struck, you know what I mean? But eventually that fire burned out for whatever reason. And Luke, when he came back, kind of went the smaller show kind of route. And he's done really well there. But as far as other shows, I think a lot of other shows have had trouble just with the longevity, maybe because of their position in the sport in general. Maybe these guys, owned a gym and they were toward the end of it and they stopped, or they were young and had all this energy and now they're getting older with families. They've slowed down. The one thing I do know is the sanctioning situation to me is a bit confusing. Like, you have to deal with the state, and then there's a sanctioning body that are completely separate. Where in the U.S., not to mention the U.S. again, but in the U.S., like you go to New York or Vegas or California and you deal with the state and that's it. They are the sanctioning body. They provide the referees. They have the rules set. They have the weight classes established. So it's really odd to come over here and have the two. So I think the other issue becomes just actually dealing with New South Wales Combat Sports Authority. I think a lot of promoters have had trouble just managing that relationship and keeping steady with all the paperwork and the minutiae that goes along with it. And that's something for me, partnering with Craig, like watching how he was able to deal with IMAF and all that minutiae and paperwork. And now the same thing, watching him deal with combat sports and the sanctioning bodies. I'm glad to have him on that side to where I can just focus on coaches, athletes, and matchmaking.
Craig, have you noticed that, with the UFC and the government sort of almost getting behind and endorsing MMA, has that helped? Has that trickled down and helped getting through red tape?
Look, not really red tape. And to be honest with you, it's a process. If you know the process, life's not too bad. Where I think New South Wales fell a little bit short in MMA promotions was COVID. Queensland were able to put on shows, in basically stadiums, to a point. Western Australia had no restrictions. Our industry died. So we had 2 years with no promotions. Fighters had no opportunities. They couldn't even go to gyms and train with each other and spar unless they did it in someone's garage and, pretended they were doing a social visit. It put New South Wales behind the 8 ball by 2 years. The talent's really starting to come back and show now. A lot of our guys are, just cranking at the bit to get on shows, and unfortunately they've got to travel to Melbourne, to Brisbane, to Gold Coast, to, Western Australia. It's a fight in front of an audience, a hostile audience every time. It's just great to have a show in Sydney. So when, shows come back with UFC Fight Week, it's good for our guys to have an opportunity. It's good for us to give them an opportunity to have, regular fights, every 2-3 months.
No, it's very good. I mean, look, two of the best fighters of all time that we have, New South Wales bound, Rob Whittaker, and of course Volkanovski, and then of course even the up and coming standout fighters, guys like George Mangos coming out of Sydney as well. So it's good that what you're doing and pushing the sport forward. And I've talked to other guys that run shows in Sydney about how difficult it can be at times. So, props to you guys. And Craig, with Showdown, what is the thing that you want people to take away from an event when people go to a Showdown?
Oh, look, it's just a professionally run night. We've got Brian and I are very similar, and we don't want to see a fight where we both know what the outcome's going to be. We like our fights to be fair. We're not here looking for 15 knockouts in a row to make people in the front row happy. We're looking to promote, happy MMA fighters, happy teams that come into the show, want to come back to the show. It makes us pretty much, want to keep going with what we do. What I want people to take out of it, come along, great night, well run. We've got 16 fights coming up in the next show. The last one we had 18, 19. We bumped through those fights in 4 hours. It's not a come along and spend 20 minutes on the microphone sort of promotion. It's get in, do your sport, shake your opponent's hand. I'm not into, two guys having a fight at weigh-ins before the fight. It's basically a playground for fighters to do what they do. Okay. And we're all about it. We'll put on fights. We'll put on full title fights in the cage. We'll put on K1 fights in the cage. We'll put on MMA fights. We basically try to include everybody. Stipulating the fact that we primarily have a cage, so MMA suits for cage. But let me be honest with you, a stand-up fight with two guys banging pretty hard, full tie rules in the cage is pretty exciting to watch as well.
It is indeed. Now, Brian, does Craig know about your Shannon Rich situation, or did we just gloss through that?
I think that was probably at about beer number 5 or 6 after he gave me the job. I just said, look, no, like every great politician, I'm gonna have to come clean on a few things.
No, it's amazing to have. You really are. If we had a Hall of Fame, you would be in it. I know you fight that sort of stuff, but you really have done a lot for the sport in Australia. What is it that you look for when matching fights?
So it's always nice to have the high end fights, and whatever you think that is, whether it's high end amateurs or really good kickboxers transitioning into MMA or high level pros. But again, it's about the teams that want to come and do the right thing, that want to be involved show after show and use this as a platform. Those are the ones that are easiest to deal with because it's consistent and the communication's there. There's no gap from one show to the next. You know, when I send a call out to a team and I don't get an answer on a show, it's not really on the forefront to message them for the next show because I didn't have that string of conversations. So consistency for me is honestly the biggest thing. The kids that come out and want to compete, they tell their own story, and I'm just happy to watch. Like, it's really, really nice now that I don't work at a gym coaching my own team or coaching someone else's team by committee. It's really nice just to watch these kids' stories as they develop and not have any sort of bias agenda or you know, other kind of input into it. It really is just find them a fair fight and let them play, and the results speak for themselves.
In terms of like the show that's coming up, is there anything that is really noteworthy that you think people should, whether it's a fight, whether it's an event, whether it's kind of what people in attendance can expect? Like, what are you looking forward to this next show?
Yeah, look, we've got 2 Australian titles on, or 3 actually. But the team of fighters who are actually going for the titles, they've been part of the show for quite a while. We know it's going to be fireworks. We know it's going to be quality. You know, we know we're not looking at a 30-second KO or to be honest with you, all the bells and whistles will be there. We've put a new element now. We've got fighters being interviewed online straight after the show. I just like watching it grow, to be honest with you. You know, we're not here to try and, you know, be the next UFC promotion. We're here to do what we do and do it really well.
When you first came in and, you know, you're having a look at Showdown from the perspective that you are now, what is the one thing that fix is probably the wrong word, but what is the first thing that you really wanted to implement?
I mean, Craig said he came from more of a kickboxing and striking background. And the one thing I noticed when Craig started facilitating conversations with coaches on past shows is it was a lot of striking gyms, you know, so not that he didn't have MMA fights and deal with MMA teams, but I think slowly and surely I was able to kind of garner a lot more contacts that were consistently asking for nominations to be put through from MMA gyms. And so it's been a very, very happy mix now of MMA fights and stand-up fights.
What's your fight to watch?
Man, the fight to watch was our main event. I don't want to go too far off the rails and get into it, but we lost our main event. We had Tully Dunn, formerly of VT1, now of Modern Combat, who's like 8-2, 9-2, is a Muay Thai guy and super talented. I was lucky enough to match him once and watch him fight Muay Thai for us. And I had him a guy from England that's a black belt that I trained in a roundabout way 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I met him in England. He was at a seminar for a guy that I visited a few times, and he's opened his own gym, but he had a massive, like, 6-year gap in there. So he stopped training martial arts, came back to it, got his black belt, opened his gym, and he decided at 33, 34 years old he wanted to have a few fights. So I had a striker versus grappler matchup. I had the international main event situation happening, and unfortunately the fella from England has had a couple of employees from his gym take some extended leave just with illnesses in their families, got quite serious ones. So he's going to kind of live in the gym now, I think, for the next 3 or 4 months, just make sure his business doesn't fall apart. But it's a fight I hope to put on next year. But yeah, as far as the fight that I'm looking forward to the most now, probably Tommy Masevsky and Alessandro Ragone at featherweight for an Australian title. Tommy's 3-0 undefeated out of Lions Den, and we know just how good those guys are, and we know that and if you don't know, but Luke said it out loud that his goal is to get his guys to the UFC and really run a fight team, not just a commercially viable gym. So he's really put a lot of time into making sure those guys get opportunities and managed correctly. And we've got a 6-3 guy from Italy coming over, training with Renato Subotic at UFC Rockdale. And yeah, those two are on a collision course, and it's gonna be interesting to watch. We don't really know much about the foreign fella, and we know just how good Tommy is with his undefeated record. So
Are you really starting to sort of push the MMA guys a little bit more and have a little bit more, like you said, the almost like higher accomplished guys? Because it does seem like you're really adding that MMA caliber into Showdown even more than it was before.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of having belts out there, but the one thing, and it's going to take some time, it hasn't really picked up just yet. I want to see guys defend those belts a time or two and then go pro. You know, so having someone like Tommy at 3-0, if he wins this and is 4-0, I'm hoping he sticks around, defends that belt 2 or 3 times, gets 5-round fights under his belt. Not to say they'll all go 5 rounds. You know, his teammate Ben Paterson had a 5-round fight booked on our last show, and he won in 30 seconds, which doesn't happen often for us. So, you know, I told Luke Pizzuti the kid owes me 14 minutes still, but yeah, if he does go 4-0, I'd love to see him get a couple more of those longer fights under his belt against top quality guys, and then turn pro, you know, in my opinion, the right way. You know, having defended the top of his hill a couple of times and then move on.
Craig, a lot of the times with, you know, getting guys to come back and defend and then essentially holding on to them when they do go pro is it ends up hurting the wallet a little bit. Are you noticing that as the show grows that you're like, it's getting more and more expensive?
Look, I was prepared to bring a guy across from the UK to fight Tully, so yeah, not that fussed. The dollars and cents part of it, you know, they're always there. Every promoter knows that you either face a win or a loss, and there's probably as many losses as there are wins on shows. Not the reason I do it, not the reason we do it.
Plus, there's no money left after Brian. Brian, is there going to be any trained Alta sort of situations happening?
I'm in a really, really nice spot in the sense that Craig's the promoter of record for any of the Alta finales in Sydney. And at Craig's show, my boss, she kind of runs the backstage for Craig. Huh. So whether I'm at an Alta show or a Showdown show, for me backstage running around, it's the same situation. It's the same 2 venues we've always used. It's always the same people involved, same officials. So things work really, really well together. The only time we've really, I think, had a mesh is when we've had like some smaller series where we've had like maybe 2 Alta series run as opposed to 4 or 5 running together. And with obviously 2 series with, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 people on the mat, you're not going to get a full fight card out of that. So we've supplemented, I think, the July 19th show. We had like 5 or 6 Alta fights, and we had 4, maybe 5 Showdown type fights. So we kind of had a split show there. But yeah, it's for me, I quite like running the Alta show separate, that vibe in the locker room where everyone's a beginner. You know, there's not some super nervous beginner looking at the pros doing their thing, thinking they don't belong there, you know? And maybe on the other hand, you know, the pros going, who are these guys that, you know, don't know what they're doing? They're wrapping their hands funny and they're warming up funny, and, you know, not being too nervous or being too serious in the back. So it's nice to have the 2 things separate. But again, for me, it's because it's all the same people involved. It works out really well.
And Craig, how do you know, after it's all said and done, how do you want Showdown to be remembered?
Oh, look, that's a pretty vast sort of answer, you know. How long have we got? Look, Showdown's been around for a long time. Like I said, the oranges of Showdown were myself and Lucy Tui, and she was a great mentor to me years ago. I always look up in the sky when I do a show, and I always think she'd be proud of this one. You know, this one was done professionally. We've had no hiccups. We had no problems, and very seldom we do. Look, Showdown's basically for us, you know, Brian, myself, and everyone that works on the show as well. It's a fun night out for us. You know, we come along there, we do what we do, and we love doing what we do. You know, Showdown's always going to be there. It's not going to go anywhere. DYRSL Club, our latest venue, is absolutely gorgeous. You know, they give us one of the change rooms you could put an MMA show on. That's how big it is. You know, mats for fighters. It's just a really nice place to come and fight. So remembered, what will it be remembered for? Perpetual. You know, it's just going to keep going and keep producing athletes and producing good fighters. You know, that's what I feel that, you know, is the I guess the game plan.
Awesome. And Brian, how do people check it out? Is there a stream, tickets? What are we doing?
Our tickets are on OzTix. We don't have a stream. We've had one, Craig. What happened there? We had someone offer to do a stream for us once for free or something, and we put that out. But sometimes it's too much trouble. To be fair, you get too many complaints. If something goes wrong, it just makes a mess of it. So It's
Look,
a lot of stress. Yeah, but what happened? We did have one stream about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, we had a stream as a trial. But the problem was the stream come on board within a week's notice, so it wasn't out there, it wasn't advertised. Your biggest problem anywhere, and every promoter will tell you now, is scammers. You put a stream out there now. At the moment, you're on some sort of stream network or a platform. Your Facebook's duplicated 500 times, and you sit there before fight show day going, "Oh my God!" Just clicked on that link, and someone will tell you how their partner went to the fraud link and it cost them $80 and want their money back. We're not going to have a live stream. It's on TV. Put it out there. We don't intend having a live stream. It's just one of those things. But what we do is we give the fighters footage of their fights basically that week. So if they want to share it, it's up to the fighter to share, their own link. Oh, it's just one of those things. Fighters get a copy of their, their YouTube or a hard copy of their fight straight away, and all the photos from the show. It's not about selling stuff on selling or making money. It's just about, hey, here's your fight. You might have had the best night of your life. You want to show everybody. You might have been that guy that didn't last more than 3 seconds. That thing would be anywhere. It's up to you.
Fair enough. All right, boys, before I let you go, Brian, Craig, anything you want anyone else to know?
Oh, look, we've got 4 shows next year coming up. We'll be releasing dates. We're always there. Hit Brian or me up, We'll try our best to get you on. We're not just a show in New South Wales. We always have interstate fighters, and, we look after them. So we're happy to have anyone on there. MMA is our focus, although, we are predominantly a striking show. Mixed martial arts, we'll have anybody.
Also, before I go, Brian Ebersole, last time I saw you when we were at Domination, there was a fighter. You left early. His name's Alex Torres.
No, I didn't. I watched a bit of him.
Well, he was really sad because he did the arrow in his chest with the chest hair, and he was sad that he didn't he thought you didn't see it.
Photo. No, I saw him. I just got out before the crowd left so I could actually get because I had a female fighter that had fought earlier in the night as well, and she lost, and she traveled from Sydney and had her mom with her, and I was their ride. So I just said, look, we'll get out early. We're not going to sit in the parking lot behind 100 cars. But no, Alex is one of my students.
Yeah.
So, I had actually seen him that week because I was over there for Alta anyway. And, he honored me with the little mini harrow, and I loved it. And it was amazing. And we've chatted a bit since. He just fought last week, actually. I beat that. No harrow. Might have been the difference. He lost a decision over there. But he's a great human and a heck of an athlete.
And before I let you go, do you still have the harrow?
It's in here. But very much like an Olympic Village situation, like it's been grown over. But it's definitely still visible to the trained eye.
Oh, beautiful. Well, that's the YouTube thumbnail. All right, Craig, Brian, thank you so much for your time and best of luck with the show, and chat to you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mitchell.